vertical position yes, due to reflection, (1:40, 42, no pellicle available, but has issues wafers per day, depends on tool and dose, 150060000 tools in field and GT90, all 0.33 Na tool models, and GT400. The different degrees of resolution among the 0.33 Na tools are due to the different illumination options. Despite the potential of the optics to reach sub-20 nm resolution, secondary electrons in resist practically limit the resolution to around 20 nm, more on this below. 43. Light source power, throughput, and uptime. EUV throughput as a function of dose. The throughput of an EUV tool is actually a function of exposure dose. For a fixed source power. Neutral atoms or condensed matter cannot emit EUV radiation. Ionization must precede EUV emission in matter. The thermal production of multi-charged positive ions is only possible in a hot dense plasma, which itself strongly absorbs EUV. 44, as of 2016. The established EUV light source is a laser pulsed tin plasma. 45. The ions absorb the EUV light they emit, and are easily neutralized by electrons in the plasma to lower charge states which produce light mainly at other, unusable wavelengths, which results in a much reduced efficiency of light generation for lithography at higher plasma power density. The throughput is tied to the source power, divided by the dose. 46. A higher dose requires a slower stage motion, lower throughput. If pulse power cannot be increased. EUV collector reflectivity degrades 0.10% per billion 50 kHz pulses, 10% in 2 weeks, leading to loss of uptime and throughput, while even for the first few billion pulses, within 1 day, there is still 20%, plus /10%, fluctuation. 47. This could be due to the accumulating SN residue mentioned above, which is not completely cleaned off. 48, 49. On the other hand, conventional immersion lithography tools for double patterning provide consistent output for up to a year. 50. Recently, the NXE 3400B illuminator features a smaller pupil fill ratio, PFR, down to 20% without transmission loss. 51. PFR is maximized and greater than 0.2 around a metal pitch of 45 nm. 52. Due to the use of EUV mirrors which also absorb EUV light, only a small fraction of the source light is finally available at the wafer. There are 4 mirrors used for the illumination optics, and 6 mirrors for the projection optics. The EUV mask or reticle is itself an additional mirror. With 11 reflections, only 2% of the EUV source light is available at the wafer. 53. Tool uptime. The EUV light source limits tool uptime besides throughput. In a 2-week period, for example, over 7 hours downtime may be scheduled, while total actual downtime including unscheduled issues could easily exceed a day. 53. A dose error over 2% warrants tool downtime. 53. The wafer exposure throughput steadily expanded up to around 1,000 wafers forward/day per system, over the 2019 to 2022 period. 54, 55, indicating substantial idle time, while at the same time running an GT120 WPH on a number of multi-patterned EUV layers, for an EUV wafer an average. Comparison to other lithography light sources. EUV, 10121 nm, is the band longer than X-rays, 0.110 nm, and shorter than the hydrogen Lyman alpha line. While state-of-the-art 193 nm RF excimer lasers offer intensities of 200 W/cm2. 56. Lasers for producing EUV generating plasmas need to be much more intense, on the order of 1011 W/centimeter 2.57. A state-of-the-art RF immersion lithography 120 W light source requires no more than 40 kW, 58, while EUV sources are targeted to exceed 40 kW. 59. The power target for EUV lithography is at least 250 W. While for other conventional lithography sources, it is much less. 53. For example, immersion lithography light sources target 90 W, dry RF sources 45 W, and KRF sources 40 watts. Higher EUV sources are re-epected to require at least 500 W. 53. EUV specific optical issues. Reflective optics. EUV HV difference of focus. Horizontal, H, and vertical, V, mask, reticle. Pattern features are focused differently in EUV optical systems. The numerical aperture, NA, also makes a difference. A fundamental aspect of EUVL tools, resulting from the use of reflective optics, is the off-axis illumination, at an angle of 6 degrees, in different direction at different positions within the illumination slit, 60, on a multilayer mask, reticle. This leads to shadowing effects resulting in asymmetry in the diffraction pattern that degrade pattern fidelity in various ways as described below. 61, 62. For example, one side, behind the shadow, would appear brighter than the other, within the shadow. 63. The behavior of light rays within the plane of reflection, affecting horizontal lines, is different from the behavior of light rays out of the plane of reflection, affecting vertical lines. 64. Most conspicuously, identically sized horizontal and vertical lines on the EUV mask are printed at different sizes on the wafer. 2 bar CD difference versus focus. The difference between the widths of two adjacent horizontal lines varies as a function of focus. The combination of the off-axis asymmetry and the mask shadowing effect leads to a fundamental inability of two identical features even in close proximity to be in focus simultaneously. 65. One of EUVL's key issues is the symmetry between the top and bottom line of a pair of horizontal lines, the so-called two-bar. Some ways to partly compensate are the use of fascist features as well as asymmetric illumination. 66. An extension of the two-bar case to a grating consisting of many horizontal lines show similar sensitivity to defocus. 67. It is manifest in the critical dimension, CD. Difference between the top and bottom edge lines of the set of 11 horizontal lines. Polarization by reflection also leads to partial polarization of EUV light, which favors imaging of lines perpendicular to the plane of the reflections. 68, 69. Pattern shift from defocus, non-telecentricity. Due to different phase shifts from reflection from the UV mask, different illumination angles result in different shifts. This results in reduced image contrast, also known as fading. The EUV mask absorber, due to partial transmission, generates a phase difference between the 0th and first diffraction orders of a line space pattern, resulting in image shifts at a given illumination angle, as well as changes in peak intensity, leading to linear white changes. 70, 71, which are further enhanced due to defocus. 72, 73. Ultimately, this results in different positions of best focus for different pitches and different illumination angles. Generally, the image shift is balanced out due to illumination source points being paired, each on opposite sides of the optical axis. However, the separate images are superposed and the resulting image contrast is degraded when the individual source image shifts are large enough. The phase difference ultimately also determines the best focus position. The multilayer is also responsible for image shifting due to phase shifts from diffracted light within the multilayer itself. 74. This is inevitable due to light passing twice through the mask pattern. 75. The use of reflection causes wafer exposure position to be extremely sensitive to vertical flatness and the reticle clamp. Reticle clamp cleanliness is therefore required to be maintained. Small, rad scale deviations in mask flatness in the local slope, coupled with wafer defocus. 76. More significantly, mask defocus has been found to result in large overlay errors. 77, 78, in particular, for a 10 nm node metal 1 layer, including 48 nm, 64 nm, 70 nm pitches, isolated, and power lines. The uncorrectable pattern placement error was 1 nm for 40 nm mask Z position shift. 79. This is a global pattern shift of the layer with respect to previously defined layers. However, features at different locations will also shift differently due to different local deviations from mask flatness, for example, from defects buried under the multilayer. It can be estimated that the contribution of mask non-flatness to overlayer is roughly 1/40 times the peak-to-valley thickness variation. 80, with the blank peak-to-valley spec of 50 nm, (1.25 nm image placement error is possible. Blank thickness variations up to 80 nm also contribute, which lead to up to 2 nm image shift. 80. The off-axis illumination of the reticle is also the cause of non-telecentricity in wafer defocus, which consumes most of the 1.4 nm overlay budget of the NXE 3400 EUV scanner. 81. Even for design rules as loose as 100 nm pitch. 82. The worst uncorrectable pattern placement error for a 24 nm line was about 1.1 nm, relative to an adjacent 72 nm power line, per 80 nm wafer focus position shift at a single slit position. When a cross-slit performance is included, the worst error is over 1.5 nm in the wafer defocus window. 79. In 2017, an actinic microscope mimicking a 0.33 Na EUV lithography system with 0.2/0.9 quasar 45 illumination showed that an 80 nm pitch contact array shifted -0.6 to 1.0 nm while a 56 nm pitch contact array shifted -1.7 to 1.0 nm relative to a horizontal reference line, within a and /50 nm defocus window. 83. Wafer defocus also leads to image placement errors due to deviations from local mask flatness. If the local slope is indicated by an angle, the image is projected to be shifted in a 4 projection tool by 8, DOF/2 equals 4 DOF, where DOF is the depth of focus. 84. For a depth of focus of 100 nm, a small local deviation from flatness of 2.5 rad, 0.14 degrees, can lead to a pattern shift of 1 nm. Simulations as well as experiments have shown that pupil imbalances in EUV lithography can result in pitch-dependent pattern placement errors. 85, 86. Since the pupil imbalance changes with EUV collector mirror aging or contamination, such placement errors may not be bestable over time. The situation is specifically challenging for logic devices, where multiple pitches have critical requirements at the same time. 87. The issue is ideally addressed by multiple exposures with tailored illuminations. 88, 89. Slit position dependence. Illumination rotation across ring field slit. Light reflected from curved optical surfaces will generate arc segments. 90. The illumination angles are rotated azimuthally across the arc-shaped slit, right, due to their flexion of an arc-shaped image from each pupil position as a point source, left. 91, 92. The angle-dependent and wavelength-dependent multilayer reflectance distribution pattern is rotated accordingly. The direction of illumination is also highly dependent on slit position, essentially rotated azimuthally. 93, 94, 40, 95, 96, 97. Nanotechnology and synopsis found that horizontal versus vertical bias changed across slit with dipole illumination. 98. The rotating plane of incidence, azimuthal range within -25 degrees to 25 degrees, is confirmed in the sharp actinic review microscope at CXRO, which mimics the optics for EUV projection lithography systems. 99. The reason for this is a mirror is used to transform straight rectangular fields into arc-shaped fields. 100, 101. In order to preserve a fixed plane of incidence, the reflection from the previous mirror would be from a different angle with the surface for a different slit position. This causes non-uniformity of reflectivity. To preserve uniformity, rotational symmetry with a rotating plane of incidence is used. 102. More generally, so-called ring field systems reduce aberrations by relying on the rotational symmetry of an arc-shaped field derived from an off-axis annulus. 103. This is preferred, as reflective systems must use off-axis paths, which aggravate aberrations. Hence, identical die patterns within different halves of the arc-shaped slit will require different OPC. This renders them uninspectable by die-to-die comparison, as they are no longer truly identical dies. For pitches requiring dipole, quadrupole, or hexapole illumination, the rotation also causes mismatch with the same pattern layout at a different slit position. I.e. edge versus center. Even with annular or circular illumination, the rotational symmetry is destroyed by the angle-dependent multilayer reflectance described above. Although the azimuthal angle range is /20 degree, 104, NXE 3400, 105, field data indicate 18.2 degree, 106, on 0.33. NA scanners, at 7 nm design rules, 3640 nm pitch, the tolerance for illumination can be /15 degree, 107, 108, or even less. 109, 110, 105. Annular illumination non-uniformity and asymmetry also significantly impact the imaging. 111, at 28 nm pitch, the required dipole illumination becomes impossible to maintain across slit on 0.33 Na EUV systems. 112. The larger incident angle for pitch-dependent dipole illumination trend across slit does not affect horizontal line shadowing so much, but vertical line shadowing does increase going from center to edge. 113. In addition, higher NA systems may offer limited relief from shadowing, as they target tie pitches. 113. Horizontal and vertical lines exhibit different shadowing across the slit. The slit position dependence is particularly difficult for the tilted patterns encountered in DRAM. 96. Besides the more complicated effects due to shadowing and pupil rotation, tilted edges are converted to stair shape, which may be distorted by OPC. In fact, the 32 nm pitch DRAM by EUV will lengthen up to at least 9 f2 cell area, where f equals active area half pitch. Traditionally, it had been 6 f2. 98. With a 2D self-aligned double patterning active area cut, the cell area is still lower at 8.9 f2. 114. Aberrations, originating from deviations of optical surfaces from subatomic and LT 0.1 nm specifications, 115, as well as thermal deformations, 116, 117, and possibly including polarized reflectance effects, 118, are also dependent on slit position. 119. 117, as will be further discussed below, with regard to source mask optimization, SMO. The thermally induced aberrations are expected to exhibit differences among different positions across the slit, corresponding to different field positions, as each position in